Hello, everyone. Hi, we're going to get started with our next session. So we have just one last session. My name is Margaret Brownlee. I am the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. I use she, her pronouns. I work for Maine Health, and I have the pleasure of introducing our next two speakers. But I couldn't be remiss to say how amazing it was to have that panel discussion with such rich talent about things going on in our state at the local and national level. So our next two speakers are Reza Jalali, who is the author of Dear Maine, and he will be speaking about that. He's also the former director of the executive for the Greater Portland Immigrant Welcome Center. And Reza is a leader in Maine's immigrant community for the past 30 years. I had the pleasure of meeting Reza when we started working together at the University of Southern Maine. And I know there's some USM colleagues here in the audience, and I think I saw Glenn Cummings. So lots of USM spirit. I'm also introducing Molly Cullen, who is the director for the Jewish Community Alliance. This is my first time meeting her, and so I'm excited to hear you speak. And I'm also going to make the announcement. It's on LinkedIn. So she's going to be the new executive director for ACLU, which excited about. She has a breadth of experience in nonprofit management, public interest, advocacy, and law. And so I put your hands together, and I'm assuming maybe Kareem too? I didn't prepare for this, so Kareem speaking as well. Welcome to the stage, and thank you so much. Oh, I do have one last announcement. So we'll be starting lunch after, and we're going to be separating it into two sessions, but I'll talk about that at the end. So don't leave. We have a lot of amazing talent to talk about. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for staying just before lunch. What an incredible panel to be following up on. You know, if we paid attention to the news, we might think that a gathering like this was not possible. What a heartening, beautiful thing to see this crowd today. It's fantastic. I'm here to help present a new initiative that we're excited will address many of the issues that you've shared and that our panel talked about this morning. I want to thank HAMSA and the steering committee and each of you for creating and participating in such a beautiful, hopeful, exciting gathering as this. Psychologists tell us that when humans feel isolated, it creates a cascade of unhealthy negative emotions. Those of us who are part of minority communities in Maine know this firsthand, as most of us experience the challenges of regularly, or maybe it feels like constantly, needing to translate and explain our culture, tradition, religion, or language. Isolation is exhausting, and it can be scary and sad. The broader community got a taste of this during COVID, and we're seeing the results in so many areas of our civic discourse right now. When we're cut off from one another, we may look to blame others, focusing on our grievances, our negative experiences. Our views may harden as our sadness and fear turn into anger. Our options narrow, and that in turn deepens our isolation. However, we do not have to be stuck in this cycle, and you know that. That's why you're here today. When we turn toward one another, when we recognize one another as brothers and sisters with common humanity and needs, then we feel seen. And some of those words, those four-letter words that Karim talked about, we feel heard. We can have real commonality, recognition, and love. That allows us to grow, learn, and work together. This gathering today has incredible power. That was also touched on the panel. Look around you. Who have you come to know through this gathering this year and in prior years? What relationships have you built because of this gathering? And what questions has it answered for you? But even more important, what questions has it opened you to ask, not only of your community, but also potentially of yourself? We're here today to invite you to take the power and possibility that this gathering creates and to join us in doing something truly fantastic. I'm so honored to be here with Reza, a personal hero of mine, and I know of many of you in this room. Reza is steeped in this work. He pioneered it in Maine and remains one of its best champions. It was Reza's vision that made possible our joint Shabbat Ramadan dinner that we held together last year. It was the first time in the state of Maine's history that Jews and Muslims broke bread together communally. The work that we're doing now is an extension and continuation of the real magic that we experience when we all gather. And it's an invitation for us to break out of our isolation and join one another, not only at work, not only at play, but throughout our lives to help improve our communities and the state of Maine. It's my pleasure to introduce Reza.
Thank you. Well, I know I stand between you and lunch, so I'm going to be very short, very careful. And so almost a year ago, Portland, Maine, our peaceful city, known wide and far for its acceptance of others, be it asylum seekers, immigrants, members of the religious minorities, LGBTQ+, and all those, was invaded, some would say, by a group of white men wearing masks to hide their identities and determined to shatter our collective sense of safety and security. To many, the arrival reminded us of the infamous Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, Virginia in 2017, where hundreds of men carrying burning torches and shouting anti-Semitism slogans terrorized the community. And why did they come to Portland, Maine? We know it's a safe bet to know that they were not here because of our fine restaurants or the art scene or visit the museum. No, I think they were here to shatter our collective sense of security because they had a problem with the way our willingness to feed the hungry in Portland, Maine, to house those unhoused, and to give a chance to those born elsewhere coming here to seek safety and human dignity. They did not like that. They came to cause division. Shattered along with our sense of safety was the fact that we were caught by surprise. We were not ready. We were not prepared. We also realized that Portland, Maine, or Maine as a state, which we all adore, is not immune to this disease, epidemic like national hatred for those who are different for one reason or the other, color of skin, sexual orientation, they worship a different God, they pray differently, they were born elsewhere, the immigration status. The list goes on and on. But we're better than that. Because of that, a group of us, and I include even Representative Decker here, Decker sitting with us, and others, including Kerem, who's going to say a few words, we came together and we said that we're better than that if one of us is in trouble, that the safety of one of us is threatened, it is bad for all of us. One of the panelists earlier talked about how her daughter was welcomed in Old Orchard Beach. We want to make sure that every child, regardless of the color of skin, where their parents were born, where they were born, could feel welcome and accepted. And that's really what this initiative, Never Hate Me, is about. It's a statewide campaign started by a group of us. It's organic, it belongs to the community, it belongs to all of you. It's not a federal government, the state government telling us behave, become better neighbors. It's about us as neighbors. It's about humanity, it's about decency. It's about being able to look at each other and see the humanity in each other, rather than the boxes, the labels, the way we have been defined by others. We are better than that. And our goal, you might laugh, our goal is to make Maine the first state in the United States to be hate-free. So we ask you to help us, to join us, to donate, to volunteer. And as an organization, you're welcome to create your own internal emergency task force to be ready. Lewiston shooting taught us a couple of things. One, that Maine is not immune to violence, gun violence. It also taught us a lesson that, again, we were not prepared. Same thing with the recent storms that we called the fire department, some of us called the police. We had no idea where to go. This campaign is about building a community that is inclusive, that we help one another, that we stand to help one another and do it in an intentional way and meaningful. This is not a PC thing. This is not checking the box. This is about all of us. So I'd end it by quoting Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, who said, what is a community? Community is society with a human face, where we know we are not alone. So please join us. Thank you. And it's my pleasure to introduce them.
Yeah, these two are the light, you know that, right? So they're like light. So hang on to them really good. I just want to say, I think I've said enough in the prior panel, but you know, there's an ancient Talmudic saying, which was shared to me by a monk. For those who know me, I spent 4 years at St. John's University, which is the largest Benedictine university in the world. So having a Muslim kid, the first one they ever had in a Benedictine monastery university, was an interesting experience. And the monk said to me, Kiram, do you know the ancient Talmudic traditions? And I said, no, I don't. He said, well, you need to read Maimonides, and you need to read Heschel, and you need to read a bunch of other stuff. I said, okay. So I went and I read. In those days, the monks, I used to clean the toilets at 4:30 in the morning for the monastery. So 4:30 in the morning, I'm done cleaning the toilets and stuff, and the monk says, well, did you read the books? St. John's is actually known for their bread. So the monks actually make their bread early in the morning. It's called St. John's bread. It's called Johnny bread. If you're ever in Minnesota, Collegeville, go get some Johnny bread. But the thing about the monks was, so they make their bread in the morning, and a couple of them, you know what? They have a little bit of a liquor with it early in the morning, just to start the day. So the guys, so the Father Rene says, hey, so did you read what I asked you to read? I said, yeah, yes. He said, do you want some Johnny bread? I said, I want some Johnny bread, absolutely. He said, do you want some drink? I was like, no, that's not my thing right now. It's like 5:30 in the morning. So he says, well, in the morning, that's when revelations come. Well, that's interesting. I'm thinking, wow, in Ramadan, that's going to come in really handy when I start my fasting, you know. So he says, so what have you learned? So I said, you know, I described the Abrahamic traditions, how there's all these common themes and commonality. He says, I'm glad you read all of that, but you know, it all comes down to this one saying. I said, what is that? He says, the saying is, if you impact one life, you're nodding, you impact the universe. Just think about that. You impact one life, you impact one universe. So this idea of hate, the only way you put a shoulder into it and nullify it is by helping out one life. Just one. And being happy with it. And then another one, and then another one, and then another one, and another one. Because then it becomes part of you. So all those assholes and nitwits and dingleberries and ding-dongs, because they are, that come and sow hate with, it's vile. It's absolutely vile. The way you do that is by going to the next person who's standing and listening to them and saying, can I just talk to you? Just come talk to me. Take the time. Because over a course of time, you will find that you're human beings. And that one person that you talk to will talk to another and talk to another. Now that takes time, energy, a lifetime. But again, coming back to the ancient saying, when you impact one life, you impact a universe. So don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Because hate takes root when you're afraid. So don't be. Stand up, look straight in their eyes, and say no. Don't expect somebody else to do it. Take your neighbors, your friends, your family, your mentors, your peers, your colleagues. Take them all with you. Have them stand with you, arm in arm. Have some Johnny bread. If you want, have a good shot of whiskey before you do it. You know, if your culture allows it. You know? And just gird up. When I was growing up, and I'll leave you with this, when I was growing up in the streets of Pakistan, there was a supermarket, Aga Supermarket, which used to sell comic books. I used to buy these comic books. In those days, it was 7 cents. I still have a bunch of them. So one of those comic books was The Avengers, which 25 years later becomes this massive franchise. Massive. 25 movies. I watched every single one of them many times. Contributed to the economy of it. But the interesting thing is, the penultimate scene in the movies, after 20 years of watching them, boils down to a whole bunch of these cadre of superheroes, which are like you, right? So there's Captain America standing there with Thor. There's the Falcon, all this legion of the Avengers, right? And they all come in. And they're looking at each other. And there's Thanos over there with the army marauding, about to destroy the universe as we know it. Multiple timelines, multiple timescales. And Captain America says, "Are we all here?" He says, "Avengers, assemble." And they assemble and they go nuts. I was watching that at the Psycho IMAX theater, and we all went nuts. Not just one showing, but I went to like 3 or 4. We all went nuts. Because when you're together, when you say Captain America, Avengers assemble, you go into the fray. So go into the fray. Don't stand back. And you'll have people with you. So, Maine, assemble. Let's go. Let's go. So,
So we're going to have Reza take some questions, but first I just wanted to have a little bit of detail to all of this. You can check us out on LinkedIn. Everything's coming together. Right now, there will be a website, neverhateme.org, and LinkedIn is already live. And Sam Katz, who's been an incredible community leader and inspiration for all of this, is at the back with handouts as well that you can grab. She's in the gray coat in the middle. And you also can email any of the people who are on stage right now, or you can email hello@neverhateme.org to get more information. Your partnership, your involvement, your questions, your ideas will really give this shape. But we certainly need to develop some kind of a bat signal as part of this process, to mix a metaphor. I'm going to turn it over to Reza to answer questions as well.
It really started when Molly shared a story with me that a friend's child was too afraid to go to school because of her religion, because she was Jewish. And I thought to myself that as a Muslim, I had to do something about that. She could have been my child, she could have been your child. Again, this is about safety of every Mainer. This is a statewide campaign, and its strength comes from all of you, from your participation, from your partnership. And at this point, we're looking for partners that you sign a pledge that you would create hate-free, safe zones in your workplaces, in your neighborhood, in your community, the places of worship. So it's really about safety and human dignity. And that's really it's all about. It's simple yet powerful. Please, I think.
Sorry, I'm a little cold, so I'm wearing my coat. Huh. My name is Dr. Galen DeRose Jr., and I work up in Greenville. And I work in clinical spirituality, and I've worked in spiritual abuse for decades. I've worked with the Catholic Church and the LGBT community and that through the Jesuits, and I've worked with Muslims and a lot of non-Abrahamic faiths and indigenous faiths as well. And I'm very inspired with this idea and concept and would be happy to be part of this as somebody who's worked in this field for a very long time. So thank you for doing this.
Thank you so much. And Sam again, Samantha Katz back there, if you would wave, Sam.
I'm sorry.
She has information, you could talk to her. Yeah.
Hey, my name's Fiwan though. I work at the Coastal Maine Botanical Gardens up in Booth Bay. I also run a nonprofit called Blueprint Maine, which helps disenfranchised kids, Black immigrant teens. And I'm been in Maine for a long time. I went to Bowdoin College, and I think the question I'd ask, all of you, and you may or may not have the answer, is in my experience, Maine is a big state, and probably the biggest challenge is how do we effectively reach the entire state? Even this conference, right? There are thousands and thousands of people who maybe couldn't be here because of accessibility. But even in terms of how we communicate and get the message out, you can't be everywhere at once. So I'm wondering how all of you in your work and also in your future work hope to address the challenge of being in a big state.
So I'll give just one example. So GWI builds fiber optic internet infrastructure all over the state of Maine and New Hampshire and Vermont. We have a massive newsletter. GWI will bring that newsletter to bear so that every single customer, every single premise that we pass by will hear about this. So it's a question of scale, right? So, all of us have networks. All of us. There's 524 municipalities in the state of Maine. 524. I bet you dollars to donuts. If all of you looked into your, I love her, by the way. She's my sister. She's my sister. I bet if every one of you looked into your LinkedIn networks and mapped it out, between all of us, we hit all 524 municipalities. Dollars to donuts. Right? So it's a question of just doing it. And it may take a while, but that's okay. That's all right. And oh, by the way, my sister over here is responsible for the Office of New Americans. So think of that. State infrastructure that's going to come to play and do a bunch of things. So your legislatures, all 524 municipalities are represented by our elected officials. Those elected officials go to a bunch of town hall meetings and select board or select person. I hate saying selectmen. So call them. Say, this is what I'm doing. What are you going to do? So yeah, sure, it's big. It's the size of Bangladesh, actually. Maine is the size of Bangladesh. Bangladesh has 189 million people, 189 million souls that try to survive every day. We're 1.3. So yeah, a fair amount of ground to cover. 97% of it is forested. I get it. But we can do it. Just one step at a time. Yeah.
Also wanted to thank Nasir Sher, a leader in the Afghan American community, for his support.
Hi, my name is Julie Roberts, and thank you to my new friend Sam Katz for inviting me here. So Coastal Maine Botanical Gardens, I'm Coastal Maine Popcorn in Booth Bay. I also am a proud member of the Booth Bay Select Board. I am a select person, and I'm also the president of the on the board of the Chamber of Commerce in Booth Bay. So Coastal Maine Botanical Gardens, let's work together and let's make this happen.
I think Booth Bay's covered. Yes.
Yes. You are selected as a partner, the select person.
We also want to thank Maine Community Foundation for providing the seed funding to enable us to really think about incubating this project. This is, as I mentioned, really in its infancy, and so we're very grateful for that support. Sam has a great concept, which is it's not the race is a relay, right? It's not a sprint, it's not a marathon, it's a relay. And each of us, as Karam said, can take the baton and move it forward. Maine may be large, but the network of humans in Maine is actually really small, and each of us has incredible access. So I love this example of Booth Bay, but we can do this all over the state with your help. Any additional questions?
I think it's time for.
Time for lunch. All right. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.